Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started.
Welcome, deep divers. Ever thought about drones doing more than just, hovering nearby? Imagine them zipping along power lines, miles away, checking things out. Well, that's not science fiction anymore. It's happening. And today we're taking a really deep dive into this world, specifically beyond visual line of sight BVLOS drone operations in Canada. We're really zeroing in on something called Level 1 Complex, or L1C, especially for Canadian utilities. It's a huge shift, driven by these big 2025 regulatory changes. So whether you're prepping for a meeting, trying to get ahead, or you're just super curious about drone tech, think of this as your essential guide, our mission. To pull out the absolute key nuggets from, a whole stack of sources, regulations, technical papers, real-world scenarios, even some training games, we wanted to give you a clear, actionable, and honestly pretty fascinating picture of this new frontier. I'm excited to dig into some surprising facts here.
And I'm here to help connect those dots, give you the context, and really stress why all these details matter so much. It's about building an informed view, especially on managing risk out there. It's not just what the tech can do, right? It's how we do it safely, legally, responsibly. We want you to really master the decision-making side of things, not just follow rules blindly.
Exactly. We're going to cover the definitions BVLOS, L1C. The planning steps you just can't skip. And then the really juicy stuff. Real-world gonna-go decisions in tricky situations. We've even got some memory tricks to make it all stick. By the end, you should have a really solid practical feel for flying safely and legally in this new era. Okay, let's unpack this, right? Let's start at the very beginning. Definitions, BVLOS. What are we actually talking about in simple terms and the official way? For me, simply put, it's when you can't see your drone anymore with your own eyes, unaided. Too far behind a hill, whatever, beyond visual line of sight.
That's a perfect way to put it simply. And formally, under the regs, CARDS Part 9, Canadian Aviation Regulations Part 9 for RPAS or drones, BVLOS is any operation not conducted within the pilot's visual line of sight. Now, the key thing here, and you really need to grasp this, it's not just a description, it's a legal trigger. The second you lose that unaided visual contact, boom, you're out of normal VLS rules. You step into a whole different framework. More responsibility, different certs, different operational needs. It's a fundamental shift.
Okay, and within that BVLOS world, there's this new thing, Level 1 Complex, L1C. Why is that such a game changer, especially for utilities? What's the big deal compared to before?
Great question, because game changer really fits. L1C is Canada's new standardized path, part of the 2025 reforms, specifically for lower risk BVLOS. See, before L1C, almost any BVLOS on flight needed a special one-off approval, an SFOC Special Flight Operations Certificate.
Right, the custom paperwork each time.
It's exactly. Huge administrative hassle, time-consuming, just didn't work well for routine, repeatable stuff like line inspections. So L1C is now formally in CARS Part 9's Division 6, Sections 901.87 to 901.90, and it's specifically designed for operations in uncontrolled airspace, and this is important, staying at least 1 kilometer away from populated areas. The impact. It slashes the admin burden. Less need for those constant one-off SFOC applications for routine work. It standardizes things, which is massive for utilities doing tons of predictable corridor checks. It gives them a clear, approved way to do it.
That history really helps understand why these 2025 changes were so needed. The old system sounds like it was just grinding things to a halt, right? Like a utility wanting to inspect miles of lines, BVLOS faced this mountain of custom paperwork for every single bit. Not efficient for big rollouts.
Precisely. If you look at the actual amendment, SOR 2025-70, it rewrote Part 9s to create this L1C framework. The whole why was to let companies like utilities doing power lines, pipelines, rail inspections, do that routine stuff much more efficiently. And at scale, it gives clearer training paths, standard procedures, and crucially, auditable records for safety and compliance. So now companies can actually integrate drones into their regular maintenance way more effectively than before. It just wasn't practical or was too costly with all that admin previously. It streamlines a really critical process.
Okay, so these aren't just ideas on paper. There are hard dates involved that people need to know. It rolled out in 2 phases, basically. First, April 1st, 2025. That was the starting gun for pilots to take the new L1C exam and for operators to apply for their RPAS operator certificate, the RPOC, kind of the prep phase. Then the big one, November 4th, 2025. That's when the actual flying under the new rules, L1C, BVLOS, EVLOS, sheltered ops could officially start.
Yeah, those dates are absolutely pivotal, no exaggeration, for any pilot or company wanting to use these advanced ops. April 1st was the starting line for getting certified and approved, and November 4th is the day everyone was waiting for the green light to actually fly. It marks the end of a lot of work between Transport Canada and industry to get this right. Hitting those milestones is, well, non-negotiable if you want in on these new opportunities.
All right, dates are clear. L1C makes sense. Now, who actually gets to fly these L1C missions? What does the pilot need? Our sources say, got to be 18, pass both the advanced and the new L1C exams, have at least 20 hours of ground school, and do an L1C specific flight review. That's quite a list. High bar.
It absolutely is. And it's designed that way to ensure you've got solid theory and practical skills. Regulation-wise, TP 15263, the basic knowledge requirements guide is still foundational. Flight principles, weather, airspace, regs, all that. But for L1C, there's this extra layer, TP 15530. That's the specific knowledge requirements for Level 1 complex. It dives deep into the unique stuff for L1C, Division 6 rules, safety management systems, advanced planning, reporting, all that. So you build on your advanced knowledge, but really specialize for the extra demand and responsibilities of BVLOS.
But just having the pilot certificate isn't the whole story, is it? The sources stress you also need an RPAS operator certificate, an RPOC. This sounds like it's about the company, not just the pilot. Like the whole organization needs audited manuals, SOPs, maintenance plans, training, reporting. Sounds like a massive commitment.
That's a critical, absolutely critical distinction. It shows Transport Canada's system-wide approach to safety here. The RPOC is a company-level approval. It proves the operator has a solid safety management system, an SMS, and a clear plan for detection and avoidance, DAA. It's proof the whole organization has the structure, the procedures, the safety culture to handle the extra complexity and risk of BVLOS. And yeah, the application itself can vary. Maybe 4 or 5 pages for simple stuff, up to 30, 40 pages for really complex ops with detailed DAA plans. It hammers home that safety here is organizational, not just on the pilot's shoulders. Oh, and speaking of pilots, there's also that new recency rule. Came in with the 2025 changes.
Like keeping skills sharp.
Exactly. L1C pilots need to meet a 24-month recency requirement. That means showing you're still proficient, maybe by repassing an exam or other ways they specify. It's in CARS 901.91, just ensures everyone stays current with the rules and tech, which are always evolving.
Okay, certified pilot, certified operator. Got it. Now, how do you actually plan a mission? Safely, legally. Our sources kept bringing up this planning mantra, almost like a workflow you just have to drill into your head. It's 3 steps. DAH, Andy, Joan, Ander, no TAMS. What I like is how it takes something complex and makes it memorable. It basically maps out. Figure out your space, get permission, check for last-minute changes, and skipping even 1 step. Well, sounds like big trouble. Let's break it down. First, DAH, Designated Airspace Handbook. I think of it like the official legend for the map of Canadian skies. Tells you what's what and the rules.
Map legend is a perfect analogy. The DAH is the legal source. It identifies all controlled airspace, restricted zones, Class F areas, whether restricted or advisory. It gives you the exact vertical limits, usually feet AGL or ASL, and horizontal boundaries, often in nautical miles. So when you're planning a BVLOS corridor, especially for utilities crossing different areas, you must start with the DAH, no question. You use it to design your corridor, figure out all the legal lines you'll cross. Maybe you go from uncontrolled Class G into a Class D shelf near an airport or near military airspace. You map it all out first. Then you can plan your buffers, your procedures. Without that legal map first, you just can't plan responsibly. Okay, so DH gives you the lay of the land legally. Then the mantra says NAV drone. That's the digital tool, right? The gateway for asking permission if your route clips controlled airspace or gets close to airports.
Exactly. NAV Drone is NAV Canada's platform for managing those access requests. And what's really neat and super helpful is its automatic validation. You punch in your flight details, route, altitude, time, and it gives you instant feedback. Green means okay, orange means warnings to check, blue has disclaimers, red means prohibited as planned. And you, the pilot, must review all that feedback, tweak your plan, Maybe change altitude, timing, route slightly until you get the okay. It forces you to understand and comply with the specific airspace rules.
And part of that NAV drone process is the operations summary. Sources really hammer this home. It's not just a printout. It's your proof of authorization for those controlled bits when you're actually flying.
Absolutely correct. Auditors love asking for it. That summary is your official documented proof you got NAV Canada's okay for those specific controlled segments. It's what you show to prove compliance. And just to nail down the order because it's crucial. DAH first, always, to design and understand the fixed airspace. Then NAV drone to get permission for the controlled slices you identified. Get that order wrong, and you're asking for trouble. Common mistake.
Okay, DAH, NAV drone. Then the final step in the mantra. No TAMs. Notices to airmen. The last-minute reality check. Temporary stuff that can pop up and totally change your plan, even if DAH and NAV drone looked good yesterday.
Critical. Absolutely critical for day of safety. No TAMs tell you about temporary, dynamic changes that might mess up your risk assessment right before launch. Could be anything. Temporary crane pops up, air show nearby, helicopter doing emergency work, wildfire restrictions suddenly active. Like one source said, yesterday safe route may be unsafe today. You have to do a full no-TAM check right before you fly. Final chance to catch immediate hazards. Flying without it is flying blind to what's happening now.
Okay, connecting all this, let's get into the real practicalities of flying BVLR. Central to doing it safely is this concept, detection and avoidance, or DAA. It's not just one gadget, right? It's a whole system. Layers of protection, basically.
Yeah.
And they're explicitly expected for lower risk BVLOS, like L1C.
Yeah, DA is definitely multi-layered. It's a strategy to make up for not having eyeballs directly on the drone all the time. And these layers aren't just suggestions. They're baked into the 2025 rules core L1C expectations. It starts with strategic routing. Plan your path away from known traffic, away from people, first line of defense. Then you add altitude caps. Stay below where most manned aircraft fly. Implement geofencing electronic boundaries the drone won't cross. Also crucial, comms plans and crew roles, maybe using visual observers for VLOS segments, clear roles for launch recovery crews, and finally, tech solutions. Things like transponder alerts, maybe other sensors, chosen carefully based on the mission's risk, the main idea. Each layer adds safety margin. Build a resilient system so conflicts are prevented, even without direct sight.
This is where theory hits the road, where rules become real judgment calls in the field. We pulled together some great real-world scenarios that really test those kind of good decisions. Let's start with a big one for any drone opti people. For L1C, the rule's clear. Stay at least 1 kilometer, about 2/3 of a mile, from populated areas. That's your buffer. But what happens when things get messy? When reality isn't as neat as the map, how do you handle shifting crowds, dynamic density? Classic case of risk being dynamic, not static. Let's take a common utility scenario. You're inspecting a 15-kilometer line. Mostly it's fine, maybe 1.2 kilometers from town. Well, clear. But then, for maybe 500 meters, the line jogs closer. Suddenly, you're only 800 meters from houses. That little bit violates the 1-kilometer L1C rule. Okay, so what do? You're stuck mid-mission.
Your ops manual should spell it out, but typical options are 1. Reroute. Can you just fly a slightly different path there to maintain the 1 kilometer? 2. Reposition. Break the mission. Land before the pinch point. Drive around. Launch again after it. 3. VLOS hop. If your procedures allow and you have a certified VO, maybe do a short extended visual line of sight segment just for that tricky bit. VO keeps eyes on. 4. Reschedule. Can you fly at super early morning or late night when nobody's around? Or 5. Escalate. If none of that works, and you must fly that segment closer than 1 kilometer, then L1C isn't enough. You need an SFOC for that specific part.
Okay, building on that dynamic density.
Yeah.
What if you're flying near, say, a stadium on concert day? Or there's a big community fun run advertised. Your map might show you're 1.1 kilometers away, technically compliant, but you know crowds might spill into parking lots, fields, effectively shrinking that buffer. What's the call?
Excellent point. This really drives home the key insight. Real-time, on-the-ground judgment beats a static map every time. Even if your pre-flight plan looked good, if you arrive on site and see crowds pushing into your buffer zone, the risk profile has changed. The answer is always aligned with L1C's intent if the actual density breaches the safety idea behind that 1 kilometer buffer.
Meaning too many people close by.
Exactly. Then you must enact your contingency, stand down, reroute. Reschedule. Maybe switch that part to VLOS if possible. Or, worst case, except you need an SFOC for that condition. It shows L1C demands active risk assessment. You got to be ready to say no-go even if the paperwork said go.
Makes sense. Okay, moving beyond people, let's talk airspace itself. It's complex. Scenario, 60-kilometer rural transmission line patrol. Mostly remote Class G, uncontrolled. But eclipse a Class D shelf near a regional airport for a few kilometers. How do you handle that?
Right. Classic mixed airspace. First, DAH, Designated Airspace Handbook. Map that Class D shelf precisely. Know its vertical and horizontal limits. Class D is controlled, usually around airports with towers. Then segment your flight plan. Only that short, maybe 4-kilometer slice needs the special permission. That permission comes via NAV drone. File the request for just that segment, and you absolutely must get that operation summary back as proof. Finally, day of. Check NOTAMs thoroughly. Any air displays, new cranes near the airport, other activity. And the classic test question is, what if that Class D gets extended slightly overnight, pushing into more of your route?
What's the answer?
You must refile an NAV drone or change your route. No ifs, ands, or buts. You don't just fly because it was okay yesterday. Airspace changes.
Got it. Another tricky one. Your line crosses a river. That river is also a seasonal wildlife refuge, Class F restricted airspace, active 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. daily. Plan.
Okay, Class F restricted means keep out during active times. It's binding, not just advisory. First, DAH again. Verify exact boundaries, vertical limits, and critically, those active times. Double-check NOTAMs for any changes to activation, your primary plan. Schedule the flight to cross outside the 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. window. If you absolutely can't avoid it, maybe plan a holding point just outside the boundary. Then, if your ops manual allows, maybe use an EVLOS hop with a VO to cross that specific segment visually. You'd also load that restricted zone as a no-go area, a hard G offense, in your mission planner. And remember the difference. F advisory, FA is just a heads up, be aware. F restricted, FR, is a legal barrier. You must comply.
Okay, what about a feeder line near a small airport with a mandatory frequency, an MF area? You're technically outside the control zone, but need to talk on the radio.
Right. Common near smaller aerodromes. First, check DAH. Does any controlled shelf actually touch your route? If yes, file an NAV drone. For the MF area itself, where pilots have to announce position and intentions on frequency, you need someone on your crew with a ROCA Restricted Operator Certificate Aeronautical. They handle the VHF radio calls, using proper phrasing, to integrate safely with any local manned traffic.
Does the RSCA A holder need the physical card?
Not physically on them, no, but the certificate must be producible within 48 hours if an inspector asks. If you transmit on aeronautical VHF, you need that RSCA eligibility.
Here's one you flagged as an automatic no-go. Small wildfire pops up 4 nautical miles, but 7.4 kilometers from your line. Moat Class G. No NOTAM yet. Can you launch?
Ah, the wildfire bubble. This trips people up. There's an automatic restricted airspace around active forest fires in Canada. Doesn't matter if a NOTAM is out yet or not, by default. No unauthorized aircraft below 3,000 feet above ground level and within 5 nautical miles of the fire, period.
So 4NM is inside the 5NM bubble.
Correct. So you verify the fire's exact location. If you're inside that 5NM radius, you do not launch. Full stop. Unless you get explicit permission from the fire boss, which is unlikely for routine ops. Even if you were just outside, say 6NM, you'd still have to consider smoke, visibility, erratic winds, and definitely the high chance of firefighting aircraft showing up. It's a critical, automatic, no-go trigger demanding caution.
Okay, let's shift to environmental and technical challenges, the weather, the tech itself. Scenario: rapid damage assessment after a big overnight windstorm. Lines are down across suburbs, farmland. Lots of potential issues here.
Yeah, complex one. Multiple risks. First, always check NOTAMs. Any TFRs, temporary flight restrictions, emergency helicopter ops, new obstacles like down poles, emergency generators, even new fires from down lines. Then, segment that corridor carefully. BVLOS might be okay over remote farmland, but near homes, you're likely looking at EVLOS with visual observers, or maybe very short VLOS hops launched from the ground for specific spots. Safety first near people. You absolutely must coordinate. Tell utility control what you're doing. If emergency crews are on scene, talk to the incident commander and adjust contingencies. Lower your return to home altitude RTH to avoid hitting debris or new wires. Have more landing spots planned, tighter geofences near houses, the big go-no-go trigger. If crowds gather, people curious, looking at damage. If they spill into your operating area, that breaches L1C proximity rules. You pause, switch to VLOS, or wait. It shows how everything connects weather, people, rules.
What about extreme cold? Say negative 82 C, maybe even negative 22 degrees C, and you're flying over a river with potential for Brazil ice. What changes?
Cold weather kills battery performance. That's the number one thing. You must derate your expected endurance significantly. Don't trust the spec sheet. Use measured performance from your own cold weather tests.
So, shorter flight legs.
Definitely. Shorter legs, more landing spots planned. Batteries need pre-warming, Have warm spares ready to swap. Wind limits need to be more conservative. 2, cold air is denser, hits harder. And overwater with icing risk. Adjust your RTH altitudes to stay well clear of potential icing layers. Ice building up on a drone is incredibly dangerous. Go trigger. If the actual temperature and wind chill cut your real measured endurance below your safe minimum for the planned leg. Safety beats finishing the leg.
Okay, tech challenge. Mountain Valley flight. Steep terrain causing GPS issues, multipath signals, signal blocked. How do you stay confident in your position?
Yeah, GNSS or GPS in mountains is tricky. Needs careful planning. First, check satellite geometry predictions for your flight time. If it looks bad, maybe wait. Your RTH path has to be terrain aware. Can't just fly straight home if there's a mountain in the way. Maybe fly lower to avoid strong valley winds. Plan shorter legs. More landing spots, ideally on ridges where signal might be better. DAA measures. Wider lateral buffers near ridges. Constantly monitor your link quality and your HDOP. That's a measure of GPS accuracy. Check it especially in known shadow spots. Go trigger. HDOP spikes way up, meaning bad accuracy, or your command link signal drops too low. If GPS gets flaky in a tight spot, pause BVLOS. Move to better signal or switch to VLOS for that bit. Position confidence is everything.
What about flying near big substations? 500 kV, lots of electromagnetic interference, EMI. Your compass starts acting up intermittently.
Substation EMI is a well-known issue. Those strong fields mess with the drone's magnetometer, the compass, your plan. If the drone allows, switch to a navigation mode that relies less on the compass. Keep a close eye on any compass warnings or if the drone isn't flying straight. Raise your RTH altitude to clear all the substation equipment the bus work. And fly further away, increase your standoff distance. Other DAA layers. Fly slower near the yard. Use gentler turns. Go. If you get persistent heading errors, drone drifting weirdly, abort immediately to your nearest safe landing spot. And definitely don't try to calibrate your compass near the substation. Do it somewhere clean.
All right. Let's look at crew and operations management. How do you handle a long flight, say 30 kilometers, that needs a handover between 2 crews midway?
Needs a very strict, standardized procedure. You need positive control transfer. Key elements. Standard radio calls phraseology, and a detailed checklist everyone follows. Checklist covers flight mode, battery level, link quality, GPS status, what waypoint is it heading to. Plus, you need pre-agreed plans for what happens if comms fail right at the handover point, abort plans, termination sites, and if there's controlled airspace, the NAB drone approval needs to cover both cruise areas. One common mistake. Don't plan the handover right at an airspace boundary. Do it in a clear, simple Class G area if possible. Don't stack risks. Clear comms, precise checklist, that's safety.
Last scenario. Power line patrol, but nearby, maybe a valley over, there's active helicopter logging. Not directly in your path, but close. How do you manage that?
Even a valley over needs proactive steps. Valleys concentrate traffic. Plan A. Try to contact the logging operation. Call their radio frequency. Find a coordination number. Can you agree on time windows when you'll stay clear of each other? Also, make sure your crew knows what frequencies to monitor. Use ADS-B monitoring if you have it to electronically see other aircraft. Another DAA measure. Maybe fly slower through any shared valleys, just gives you more reaction time. The go-no-go is pretty clear. If you can't coordinate or you're unsure where those helicopters might pop up, you delay or reroute. As the source says, valley funnels concentrate traffic. Better safe than sorry when dealing with manned aircraft.
We've talked a lot about L&C, its benefits, how it works. But it's just as vital to know its limits. There's that kitschy phrase from the sources. If risk spikes, SFOC strikes, meaning sometimes L1C just isn't the right tool and you need that special flight operations certificate. So from a safety and compliance view, what are those triggers? When is L1C definitely not enough?
This is a super important decision point. L1C is explicitly for lower risk BVLOS, as defined in CARS Part 9, Division 6. That's its box. If your planned mission's risk profile goes outside that box because of where you're flying, the number of people nearby, the tech you're using, or the procedures needed, then L1C doesn't cover it. You must go back to the SFOC RPAS application process.
Examples?
Like needing to fly closer than 1 kilometer to people without specific approved extra safety measures, or flying within 5 nautical miles of certain airports where L1C doesn't apply, or maybe using brand new DAA tech that isn't yet part of the standard L1C framework. Knowing those boundaries is key. You can't just try to make L1C fit if the risk is genuinely higher.
Okay. Besides knowing when and how to fly, you also need to be ready for checks. Audits. Inspector could show up anytime, anywhere. What paperwork do you absolutely need on hand or ready to show fast to prove you're compliant?
Yeah, audit readiness is non-negotiable, shows a good safety management system. You must have your pilot certificates advanced and L1C readily available, your company's official RPAS certificate, and the drone's registration if it's 250 grams or more. And critically, if you flew through controlled airspace on that mission, you need that NAV drone operation summary handy. That HTML file is your direct proof you got permission from NAV Canada.
Let's make that concrete. Scenario. You're flying near a town, someone complains, inspector shows up right there on your launch site. What do you show them beyond those core docs?
Right, okay. Inspector arrives. You immediately show pilot certs, RPOC, registration, and the NAV drone summary for that specific flight. Gotta be ready, on site. Beyond that, a thorough auditor will want to see operational discipline. Your pre-flight briefing records tailboard meeting notes, relevant SMS entries, risk assessments, any incident reports, your flight plan maps showing the route, buffers, planned landing spots. And if someone was making radio calls on MFATF frequencies, they need to be able to produce proof of their RSCA certificate within 48 hours. It's about showing the whole safety system is working. Oh, and a small but easy thing to check. The drone itself. Since 2025, CR's 900.14 says RPAS 250 gram plus must have its registration number clearly marked on the aircraft. Simple compliance check.
Wow. We have covered a ton of complex stuff, regulations, the DHAV NOTAMs flow, those really tricky real-world calls. But how do you, the listener, the operator, the pilot, make all this stick? So it's not just info you heard once, but stuff you actually know and use under pressure. This is where our forces had some fantastic, kind of fun ideas, sticky nuggets for retention, not just games, but ways to lock in critical info.
Exactly. It's about getting beyond just reading the rules, making it active, instinctive. Part of your operational DNA, really, builds recall and faster decision-making.
Okay, first one. Corridor karaoke, literally chanting the planning mantra, BAH Eddie NOTAM's ADA contingency. Maybe tap it out, point to a card. Sounds silly, works wonders. The auditory, verbal, visual cues lock it in.
And link to that. If risk spikes, SFOC strikes. Make it a call and response drill. Someone shouts a scenario, sudden crowd appears, crew yells back, risk spikes, SFOC strikes, or stand down, or VLOS patch. Builds that instant reaction muscle.
I love corridor coloring. Get a paper map, grab highlighters, green for the approved BVLOS path, yellow for buffers, orange for handover points, red for no-go zones. Taps into spatial memory, makes briefings way more engaging.
For radio users, the ROCA radio wrap. Practice your standard calls, name, position, altitude, intent, like a rhythm. Seriously helps overcome freezing up on the mic, builds confidence for those crucial calls.
And for that automatic wildfire rule.
Yeah.
A wildfire bubble doodle. Just sketch a flame. Draw the 5nm 3,000-foot AGL bubble around it. Seeing it visually cements that it's an automatic restriction, NOTAM or not.
Mnemonics too. Simple ones. L1C, one corridor, one company, one checklist, standardized. DAH before NAV. Design first, then dial the permission. BVLOS, beyond vision. Lots of safety. Risk reminder. SFOC, special for out of category, the trigger. Little hooks help organize complex stuff.
For crew handovers, the handover handshake. During the brief, actually do a handshake gesture while reciting the checklist. Mode, battery link, GPS, waypoint, comms, abort plan. Physical action plus words, sicky, reinforces that positive transfer.
Building fast judgment. The pop-up density game. Rapid fire what if questions. Fun run appears under the line. Team members shout out one valid response. VLOS patch. Reschedule. Stand down. Trains quick thinking, contingency planning.
Visualizing safety layers. The DAA ladder, draw a ladder, rungs are. Route, altitude, geofence, comms crew, tech sensors, risk goes up. Mentally climb the ladder, adding more layers before proceeding.
Battery truth or dare. Truth, what's your real measured cold weather endurance? Dare, plan your next leg 20% shorter than that and name 2 alternates. Forces honesty about performance over specs. Vital in tough conditions.
Audit readiness drill. Can I show it now? Randomly pick someone. Show to your pilot certs, RPOC, registration, NAV drone summary. Now, fast retrieval means real readiness, builds confidence.
Making buffers real, the 1-kilometer tape trick. Use a scale ruler on a map. Physically slide it along your route to see that 1-kilometer populated area buffer. Makes the abstract rule tangible.
Legal lightning round. Quick quiz on regulation numbers. 901.90. Team answers. Pilot certificate L1C issuance. Locks in those key legal references.
Consolidating it all, the 60-second corridor pitch. Practice summing up the whole plan for a mission quickly. Check DAH, got NAV drone okay, verified NOTAMs, layered DAA, brief contingencies, synthesizes the workflow.
And finally, the one-page brag. Keep a single sheet map, DAA ladder, handover plan, key landing spots. Creating and updating it keeps the whole operation sharp in your mind. Ready for anything. So L1C is massive, clearly. But those 2025 reforms brought in other new ways to fly, too. Extending advanced ops beyond just BVLOS shows a bigger trend, right? Like, there are rules now for shelter operations, flying close to structures within 60-meter horizontal, 30-meter vertical, but still 30 meters from people. This is huge for inspections. Lets you briefly lose sight around a bridge, pier, or tower without needing full BVLOS cert. Really practical for certain jobs. Then there's VLOS, extended visual line of sight. That's for uncontrolled airspace over 30 meters from people using a certified visual observer. Key limit: stay within 3.6 kilometers, 2 nautical miles of the pilot or VO. Kind of bridges the gap between VLOS and BVLOS. And finally, rules for medium drones, 25 to 150 kilograms, flying VLS. Advanced pilots can fly these bigger drones now within sight using buffer zones based on manufacturer safety declarations. Opens up heavier payloads, different task.
What's really insightful, I think, is seeing these together. L1C, sheltered ops, EVLOS, medium drone, VLOS. They're all distinct, but they show Transport Canada creating defined pathways for things that were maybe gray areas before. They target different risks, different needs, but overall it leads to a more structured, predictable, and ultimately safer system for advanced drone use. It's a real modernization effort.
Of course, with new rules, new privileges, more oversight, comes cost. The sources mention new fees pretty much across the board.
Yeah, that's the reality. Cost of compliance, regulatory oversight, it's been updated. There are fees now for the pilot exams basic, advanced, and the new L1C one. Fees for getting your L1C certificate issued, updated drone registration fees, fees for getting your company's RPOC certificate, and a big one, SFOC applications. Used to be free, now they're fee-based, tiered by complexity, reflects the resources needed by the regulator to assess these advanced, complex requests.
Looking ahead then, beyond 2025, what's next for BVLOS in Canada? I guess we'll see things open up gradually, maybe wider lanes than just these lower-risk corridors eventually, moving into more complex airspace. Probably as DAA tech gets better, operators get more data from their safety systems, NAV drone gets smoother.
That sounds about right. A gradual expansion based on proven safety and tech maturity. I'd also expect ongoing tweaks to the standards. Updates to TP 15530, TP 15263. As we all learn more post-November 2025, expect refinements to recency rules, maybe clearer SMS expectations. It's a feedback loop, operations inform regulations, a dynamic process.
And connecting to the bigger aviation picture seems like we'll keep seeing more focus on tight airspace integration.
Absolutely. Closer alignment with DAH, more digital permissions via NAV drone, clearer guidance in the AIM, the Aeronautical Information Manual, all aimed at reducing confusion in mixed airspace, making it safer for everyone, manned and unmanned.
Wow. Okay, that was definitely a deep dive. We covered so much. You should now have a really solid grip on L1C, how to navigate those tricky scenarios, and ways to make the safety stuff second nature. From BVLOS definitions and the 2025 rollout to that DAH Navi NOTAMs flow, and knowing when L1C isn't enough, that's incredibly valuable knowledge. So what does it all mean for you going forward?
Well, it means getting these concepts isn't just about ticking boxes for compliance. It's about actually enabling safer, more efficient, truly scalable drone ops. For utilities, yes, huge potential unlocked. But it goes way beyond that. This knowledge lets you operate competently in this new space, lead responsibly, push boundaries safely.
And as we always say, this field never sits still. It's always changing tech, rules, best practices, staying current, continuing to learn.
Yeah.
You just have to. Your deep dive journey here is definitely ongoing.
Indeed. And maybe one last thing to chew on. As this tech gets better, as flying beyond sight becomes more normal, what about the ethics? When the human is even further removed from direct sight, what new questions arise? And how do our rules, our training, need to adapt for that changing balance between human judgment and autonomous systems? Something to ponder as you continue your own deep dive. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.